Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at the Hazelburn 15 Oloroso. Dustin, 2020 bottling. 2022 bottling, excuse me. 9,000 bottles. This one comes in at cask strength of
54.1-ish. That's on the front.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Right there.
You're right.
54.2.
54.2% ABV. So Hazelburn, Springbank Distillery, triple distilled, unpeated whiskey. This one's super dark. We picked up a couple of these Olorosos. You picked these up, yes?
Yes.
You were able to get two of them, one for me, one for you. Or wait a second, two for you, one for me, I believe. Isn't that right, Dustin?
I may have gotten more than one, yeah.
Yes. So this one came in super dark for us. Super impressed by this whiskey so far, so really excited to bring it to you guys. Hazelburn, we don't get enough of them to you, but when we do, they're usually pretty impressive whiskeys. The triple distilled version from our Campbelltown favorites, Springbank, and this one is a dark Oloroso.
Yeah, we've probably done the channel a disservice. I think this is the first of this series we're bringing, mostly because I kind of didn't want to blow the to bring it up.
Wow, this is sherry forward and clean.
It's incredibly clean yet dirty. It's got funk, but it's vanilla. It's this balance of they've got some kind of funky, interesting sherry cask here for sure. Hazelburn's got a little bit of, I would say it's funk light, and they're playing on each other here beautifully.
It's almost like Long Row, where it's dirty and you got to sweeten it up with a cask. This one, it's a pretty light, clean, airy spirit, and you kind of dirty it up with a cask.
Yeah.
So you're getting a dirty Oloroso cask maturation here.
It's funny, Mike. I'm digging in and I'm getting these Oloroso sherry notes, and I'm like, all right, here comes the chocolate. And then I get a bunch of vanilla too, and I'm like, where the heck is that coming from? It's got to be that Hazelburn. Sweeter. It's like it's a little bit sweeter than Springbank, and so it's like instead of Springbank's cookies, it's more Hazelburn vanilla.
Yeah, the vanilla and chocolate are really just a fighting back and forth. It's really quite a dichotomy. It's almost like a chocolate-covered banana or something like that. It is just both of the pillars of flavor, right neck and neck, and both are recognizable.
I'm trying to come up with a good descriptor for right now that Hazelburn malt that's coming through, because you definitely get that Hazelburn malt, but it's
clean, sweet lemon.
There's that's going on, but like there's
as far as the malt,
there's a heftiness to it though. Like
yeah.
But it's like I keep saying barley, but it's obviously it's barley, but like sometimes I think of like white bread or like a wheat bread. This is something a little different. I'm trying to pick it out.
This has always been to me the way White Lightning is strong but doesn't look strong as a liquid. Mm-hmm. Hazelburn is a triple distilled, super clean Springbank that is unpeated. But Springbank doesn't have a lot of peat, 5, 10 ppm, whatever.
But it has enough to where you get it.
It's enough to where you get it. So this is a clean Springbank, but don't think that there isn't that heft. You know what I'm saying? And that density to this whiskey. It's a whiskey that is far more dense. It's far more transparent than it is dense. It's clean and more approachable on the nose, and it's not always exactly recognizable right when you start nosing the whiskey how thick and rich that it is.
I mean, it's got that barley husk, and it's got some like breadiness. It's got some like desserty elements, but people always kind of want to bring up. I hear a lot of people talking about Springbank being dirty, but it's not. It's earthy. It's not dirty. Like
earthy is dirty.
Yeah, but like it's like you go to like a spa to get like a mud bath or something. Like it's clean mud. If that makes any sense at all.
You're on concrete standing next to it, not in the mud, like you are with Long Row. But no, this is
Long Row is dirty.
Yeah, this is very airy. The fact that it is relieved of the peat, almost like a Cleal unpeated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm super enjoying it. I'm not even talking about the cask maturation until right now. This cask, this Oloroso sherry cask, to jazz up the spirit, which is super malleable. Yep. Hazelburn's a super malleable spirit, in my opinion. You can make it boring. You can make it... To me, it's kind of just a lemon, like a dense lemongrass to some degree. It almost comes off as really good old... Like the Hazelburn 10 came off as like a basic old lowland whiskey to me.
I can see some of that, yeah.
Get a little bit of that lemongrass, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of that field smell. But with this one, it's even denser. I really love the Hazelburn malt, the older that it gets. And when you put a crazy cask maturation on it, especially Oloroso sherry or PX sherry, which this is Oloroso, wow. It is sherry forward with that beautiful backbone of that Hazelburn springbank malt.
This is really, it's starting to creep there, and I will get to the palate here next, but it is starting to give me a little bit of Glendronach 18. It's that level of quality Oloroso sherry cask. Doesn't have the coal note, obviously. You would not expect. It's a 15-year-old springbank. They're not coal-fired, but it's giving me just a hint of that, and it's really making me think of a much older than 15-year-old sherry whiskey here on the nose. Just beautiful. All right, where you at, Mike?
Very, very sherry forward. Very sweet initially on the palate. Hazelburn malt, springbank malt, wherever it gets completely out of the way. Very cask driven. Quality oak. Oaky, it's sherry. Super chocolate on the mid palate, continuing in the finish. And just a clean milk chocolate comes through. Very dark chocolate initially on the mid palate as soon as you swallow. But the finish is very, very, very much a silky milk chocolate. Beautiful cask maturation with this whiskey. You can do a lot with this spirit.
Up front, overripe, sweetened strawberry with layers of chocolate, oak coming through. Definitely reminding me a lot of the sherry casks on the Glendronach 18. But then it's springbank sugar cookie malt that comes through. And that at that point, yeah, it goes from a dark chocolate, Mike, as you noted, to milk chocolate. But for me, as the oak starts coming back in, those 15 years are just enough to start bringing in some nice oak. I get back to like an 80 cocoa level bitter chocolate. Unbelievable transition. And I tell you what, Mike, that 54% is so perfect here.
You can drive an ABV because of that spirit is so clean and so light. Not light, excuse me. It's clean. That triple distilled spirit is clean. It is dense.
It's all dessert on that malt.
With water, more red fruits are coming up here.
I want to overdo the water here.
A little bit of raspberry and a little bit of light watermelon.
So I've gotten strawberry, raspberry, and I think at one point I even got some cranberry on this one. It's a tough red fruit to crack sometimes.
What did I say? Cranberry and watermelon? It's cranberry and watermelon.
Those are options too. I get why you're saying watermelon right now for sure. Oak tannins.
Watermelon is something I've gotten in other offerings from Springbank. I got it in the Long Row 15, red. Got a little bit of that watermelon note. With water, though. You know what I mean? Both scenarios, cask strength whiskeys, I had to add a little water.
Yeah. Water's just moving the fruits around here, bringing out a little more of that sour fruit in a good way. Like this is not like a unpleasant. It's like I like sour fruit notes. They're here.
Sour raspberry, light watermelon.
Raspberry's a good note too.
They turn so red. The sherry turns so red with water.
Mike, so we've talked about different quality sherry cask. This to me is that sweet spot. It's not old school sherry, but it's not the sherry cask I get a lot of times these days where, I don't know, it just feels like they barely left enough sherry in there. It wasn't there long enough, and it just doesn't work.
This sherry cask had time with that sherry.
Yeah. This
cask had some love to it, man.
This is a good example of modern sherry cask. Maybe a great example. Actually, it's a great example. This is nothing like that sherry cask they use for that Springbank local barley. This is sweeter, less oaky. It's imparting just more fruit. But it still has a nice little bit of oak here. I mean, it's done some good stuff. It's got some density.
The oak note does remind me of a Glendronach. Without the coal note. This is a beautiful example. This might be one of my favorite Hazelburns.
It wouldn't shock me at all if they're sourcing these sherry casks from wherever Glendronach was getting those. Wherever Billy Walker was getting those from. I'm telling you.
There's a chalky chocolate note that's so recognizable. What a beautiful spirit.
This kills like what the Glenallachie right now is putting out with their sherry notes. Now, we'll see. Billy, I'm sure in a few years we're going to be like, oh my God, he knows what he's doing. But I don't know who's putting out a better sherry cask right now consistently than these Hazelburns. This one and the 2020 are just stunner sherry casks. 2021 was a refilled clear one I didn't get. So
the fruits go back and forth between like the red fruits, like the watermelons and the raspberries, and going back and forth with that dark chocolate. Beautiful whiskey. All right, Dustin. So where are you at as far as the whiskey score on this one?
there's also a little bit of nuttiness here I hadn't brought up yet.
Agreed.
Really nice nutty, and again, it's incredibly enjoyable.
Can I go first?
Go for it, man.
90. I could almost go to a 91. This is, I mean, you got a couple of these and you were like, hey, I'll bring it, blah, blah, it's good whiskey. And then, you were able to pick up a couple more and you were like, hey, man, do you want one? I'm going to give it to you or give it to Keith. I'm like, well, how many you got? You're like, I got 2 or 3. I'm like,
sorry, Keith, I asked.
And I was just like, this is better than you're telling me. I could tell by the way you presented the question.
Just in a text form.
Yeah, like, Dustin's not telling me something here. He's being way too brief about this conversation. And I know why now. And I know why the first time I had this, you were absolutely holding on me. Yeah, this is a 90. You could have convinced me as a 91 as far as enjoyment. This is a beautiful Campbelltown triple distilled, super punchy, perfect Oloroso cask to match the spirit. Well aged, 15 years, cask strength, nothing off putting, everything delicious. I'm picking up a little bit of more of a sugar cookie note now too that I usually get in the springbank just without the super funkiness. It's all here. It's beautiful cask. It comes off older.
I just keep finding new stuff as I'm sipping on this.
90, and you could have convinced me 91. Where are you at, Dustin?
91. Yeah. I actually, first time I had this, I told myself it's a 91. And then I went back, I did a comparison of this, the 14-year from a couple years ago, the 2020 13-year. I didn't go back further. I have one of the older bottles too, and I didn't come away thinking this was better than those other whiskeys by that much. And then I thought, well, then I need to drop it to a 90. But now having it here again today, no. By itself, it's a 91. When you compare it to other whiskeys, you start getting other flavors. This is just, to me, Mike, the perfect first fill sherried whiskey. In 2022, I don't know that anybody's doing anything better than this.
What a great distillery.
And I'm telling you, from cask to distillate to however they put this together, because I thought the 2020 was a stunner, and that's why I wasn't sure, because you were not as big a fan of the 2020.
I was not.
Which I don't get, because that one, I think, is right here next to this one. That thing was a stunner. This is a stunner.
He who's without sin cast the first stone, Dustin. I had to come around a little bit on that.
I was lucky to get a few bottles of the... I actually got about a case of the 2021, and I got 4 or 5... I got 2 or 3 people bottles, and then I went literally shared 2 of those bottles just with friends at random events where I just poured, so it was going.
God, such a great one.
And wish I'd kept more of those for myself, but... And that's why I'm glad I got a couple of these, because I guarantee you I'm going to be sharing this bottle a ton.
In a day of great drinking, a whiskey I will remember fondly.
I'm going to remember every whiskey from today outside of maybe 2.
Yeah.
And that's something I can't say often.
Good day. If you guys had a chance to try this one, you're lucky.
God.
And I want to know what you think. Are we wrong? Are we being too generous? If I become a Springbank fan as well?
Your collection's starting to look like it, Mike. You're starting to buy more and more of them.
You're dragging me forward. I'm going to be like Robin Whiskey in the 6 here pretty soon. Huge Springbank fanboy. So, anyway.
Drinking Kilkerran 8. Port.
Kilkerran is not Springbank. Blasphemy. All right. So if you guys had a chance to try this one, seriously, this is a absolute stunner. Try to get your hands on this one. I'm probably selling it shorter than 90. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy I'm having another one tonight drinking.
We are. See you next time.